When I first moved into Brookstone Hollow, I thought I had found a little slice of paradise. After years of apartment living, endless noisy neighbors, and landlords who barely fixed the plumbing, buying my own place on Maple Bend Court felt like leveling up in life. The houses were charming, the lawns were manicured, and kids still rode their bikes until sunset. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect, maybe. But I ignored that unease, too eager to believe I'd found home. I even shrugged off the thick packet of HOA regulations they slid into my mailbox 2 days after closing. "It's just to keep things nice," the realtor had said. "You'll love it here." That was before I met Patricia Langford, the HOA president, the self-appointed queen of Brookstone Hollow. She had a permanent scowl etched into her face, as if smiling once would crack her whole skull open. Her hair was an over-bleached cloud teased into a helmet, and her lips were always pursed like she had tasted something sour. The first time I saw her, she was yelling at a teenage boy for riding his skateboard too recklessly near her driveway. I should have taken it as a warning. At first, Patricia's presence was just background noise, like the steady buzz of a lawnmower 3 streets over. I'd see her marching around the neighborhood with her clipboard and pen, noting the tiniest infractions like a hall monitor, drunk on power. I figured if I kept my head down, kept my lawn mowed, and my trash cans hidden, she'd leave me alone. That theory lasted about 2 weeks. My first violation notice came pinned to my door with masking tape. Unapproved color of front door. Apparently, the navy blue I had chosen was not listed in the Brookstone Hollow official color palette. It needed to be repainted Autumn Twilight or Serenity Beige within 30 days or face escalating fines. I stood on my porch rereading the letter 3 times, wondering if I was on some hidden camera prank show. But no, this was just life in Patricia's kingdom. And from that moment on, she made it her personal mission to make my existence here miserable. It became a daily siege. Notes about my mailbox needing realignment to regulation height. Passive-aggressive flyers slipped under my windshield wipers about proper grass edging. Once, I caught her peering over my fence with a tape measure, apparently checking if my garden shed was the approved distance from the property line. She even sent me an official warning when she saw my dog, Max, off-leash in my own backyard. Completely enclosed, mind you. Complaining wasn't an option. She was the HOA. George, her husband, was technically on the board too. But he was a beaten man, always shuffling behind her, nodding mutely like a hostage. The other neighbors just shook their heads and mumbled about Patricia being Patricia. I realized most people here simply endured her tyranny, gritting their teeth behind fake smiles. But Patricia had decided I was a threat to her little empire, and she didn't intend to let that slide. The final straw came with the Brookstone Hollow Summer Kickoff Bash. It was supposed to be a friendly event, potluck, kids' games, music, all held in the community park. Attendance wasn't technically mandatory, but Patricia had a way of making it feel that way. If you didn't show up, you could expect an avalanche of routine inspections and nitpicking violations. I spent a whole afternoon making my grandmother's famous macaroni salad, telling myself it was just one evening and then I could get back to my life. The park was decked out with folding chairs, long tables groaning under crockpots and casseroles, and a tiny, pathetic stage where George plunked on an acoustic guitar. I tried to mingle, tried to be social, but Patricia found me within minutes. She latched onto me like a vulture, loudly chastising me in front of a whole circle of neighbors because my recycling bin was visible from the sidewalk. I apologized politely and tried to walk away, bouncing my paper plate of food and my fraying patience. Patricia wasn't done. She followed me across the park like a heat-seeking missile, raising her voice louder with each step. "We have standards in Brookstone Hollow, Daniel," she barked. "People like you think you can just do whatever you want." I was trying to ignore her, trying to find some neutral ground near the lemonade stand, when I felt a sudden searing pain in my upper arm. For a moment, my brain refused to make sense of what was happening. I looked down and saw the handle of a plastic picnic fork jutting out of my arm, jammed in at an awkward, shallow angle. The world went weirdly silent around me. Patricia stood there, her face contorted into an expression of pure, rabid rage, still gripping the fork like she meant to twist it. Blood trickled in thin red lines down my elbow. Someone screamed. The music stopped. Paper plates clattered to the ground. George dropped his guitar and sprinted over, his face white as chalk. But Patricia barely seemed to notice. She yanked the fork out of my arm with a sick, wet noise, then flung it down like it had burned her. Panic erupted. Neighbors rushed in, some pulling Patricia away, others trying to help me sit down on a picnic bench. I could hear the shrill blare of someone calling 911. Patricia, still flailing and shouting, shrieked about how I provoked her, how I threatened the safety of the neighborhood, how she had no choice. She sounded deranged, like some dictator justifying a coup. The police arrived within minutes, 2 cruisers pulling up onto the grass with lights flashing. I sat there clutching a wad of napkins to my bleeding arm while officers handcuffed Patricia, who continued her meltdown with impressive volume and creative obscenities. George, red-faced and trembling, tried to apologize to me quietly, but the words fell flat. There was no apologizing for what had just happened. As the ambulance pulled up and the paramedics started treating me, I caught a glimpse of Patricia being shoved into the back of a cruiser, still shouting about bylaws and standards like a mad queen dethroned. The aftermath dragged on for months. Patricia was charged with third-degree assault and a string of minor violations. The HOA board, without their iron-fisted leader, practically collapsed overnight. George resigned within a week, citing personal stress. For a while, Brookstone Hollow felt lawless. Lawns grew wild, Christmas lights stayed up into spring, kids chalked all over the sidewalks, and honestly, it was glorious. The neighbors, who once tiptoed around Patricia, now threw block parties every weekend, as if trying to erase her memory with hot dogs and sparklers. But for me, the damage was done. I couldn't forget the feeling of that fork plunging into my skin, the sheer madness in Patricia's eyes. I started sleeping with a baseball bat by my bed, double-checking every lock before turning in at night. The sense of safety I had once felt here was gone, ripped away as easily as that cheap plastic fork had torn into my flesh. Worse, Patricia didn't vanish quietly. Oh no. Word spread that she was suing the HOA, claiming emotional distress and wrongful removal. Her lawyer, some sleazy local celebrity with late-night TV ads, sent threatening letters to half the neighborhood, alleging slander and harassment. It was absurd. Everyone was terrified to talk about her, even after everything she had done. It was like her ghost still haunted Brookstone Hollow. Some people even whispered she would move back, that she was biding her time. I laughed it off publicly, but in private, I watched every strange car that idled too long near my street. I even caught myself jumping at shadows, scanning faces at the grocery store, wondering if she might appear again, clutching another fork or something worse. Fear changed the flavor of everything. I still kept my yard immaculate, not for compliance anymore, but because the ritual soothed me, gave me something I could control in a place where control felt like an illusion. People often ask me why I stayed. Why not just move? Sell the house, start over somewhere Patricia-free? And believe me, I thought about it. I looked at listings, daydreamed about tiny cabins in the mountains or loft apartments in cities where nobody cared about mailbox heights. But every time I got close to putting a for sale sign on the lawn, something held me back. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the quiet fury of refusing to let someone like Patricia Langford steal anything else from me. I wouldn't let her win. Brookstone Hollow could heal, and so could I. Even if the scars, visible and invisible, would always be part of me. Healing is slow. Some nights I still wake up sweating, heart racing from a dream where she's at my door with a clipboard in one hand and a butcher knife in the other. I have to sit up, turn on every light, touch the healing scar on my arm to remind myself, it's over. She's gone. Or at least that's what I tell myself.